One and all, thanks for joining us once again. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. It's been about a week and a half since our last show, and it's always nice to present information that's unique to the market versus repeating the exact same thing that everybody's saying. As you know, the big news right now is that Elon went and bought $1 billion worth of shares, and the market's reaction to that was basically if Elon's buying versus selling, it's a good sign of where the stock is going to go. As I was reviewing what else to say regarding this, there's a small little detail that I wanted to sort of explore with you today, and that is the whole process of how Elon is choosing to roll out the Semi. As you know, he's done a process where he had a bake-off between the Semi and the Cybertruck. Because he lowered the Cybertruck price to $100 to register, it created a 2 million reservation situation. And what was interesting about that is that the Cybertruck initial deposit price was made $20,000, and that number theoretically was about 5,000 reservations. And so it was justified to go ahead and make the Cybertruck the next vehicle because it had so many more orders. And we've seen how that's worked out. The bottom line, and Elon admitted this on the first vehicle, was that if your vehicle arrives above $100,000, that's a very different number than if the arrival price was the $40,000 that was originally presented. So the next question then is, well, what's next and what's unique about the Semi? Well, the thing about the Semi is it's not really a consumer product. So in theory, Elon need not provide any information to sort of consumer-facing folks as they're trying to get in on what the capabilities of Semi can do, etc. In fact, it's my belief that Elon has a process I call hedge fund destroyer. So there are fun activities that Elon has that he does within the companies he runs, and Tesla being one of them. I can recall a few years ago where there were certain managers who asked people on the Thursdays that Elon's helicopter lands at the facility to make themselves scarce, to not be around, because Elon has actually had periods where he just decided somebody was going to get fired today or multiple people would be fired. And they would end up being fired, but it wasn't necessarily because they did anything. It's just that he enjoyed sort of the process of firing people for whatever his reason might be. So when we look at that, I would say that one of Elon's sort of pastimes is he really enjoys sort of destroying companies and entities that have shorted his stock. And as a result, the way he manages information related to the stock price tends to be find ways to optimize the destruction of people who are shorting the stock or shorting the company, if you will. And so it's my belief that we're sort of heading into this. Now, on our way to this short situation, I wanted to remind you that starting in July of this year, we predicted that Tesla would double by January. So we're almost halfway to the double based on where we were, let's say, at the low in August. And so what do I think is going to occur and why to finish out the loop? Well, I saw something that I thought was really interesting, and that is if you look at the images as they finish out the new factory for the Semi, they did something very, very different, strange, which is there's different section of the Semi area. There is the actual assembly floor for the Semi, there's the area, I call it the stamping area. Basically, Tesla bends metal to create the exterior of the truck. And then finally, there's the paint shop. Once you bend all that metal, you run it through the paint shop so you can put corrosion stuff, exterior and interior. And now you have a finished sort of exterior of the truck that would come together with batteries and other components to complete the entire truck. Elon did something interesting where they completed the factory floor area. And I thought this was really interesting because the way it was completed sets them up to continue producing trucks at low volumes while the remainder of the truck factory is finished. So as you probably know, the process that's been going on for the last 4 years with Tesla is all the metal bending and the paint has been done in Fremont, and those exteriors of the ship or of the trucks were being shipped from Fremont to a small 100-a-week run facility in Reno, about 10 or 15 miles from where the new factory is being built. So based on the fact that he's already finished and put a roof over the production area, it's my belief that they've decided to go ahead and move production and start doing that production as slow runs, and then they'll ramp production after the stamping facility and the paint shop are complete. And so there's production going on, and it's going into some people's hands, and until we see who's getting those vehicles, I think everybody's in the dark except for those who are actually paying the bill, and as it should be. So it's my belief that perhaps, we keep saying hyperbole that this is the largest sort of factory announcement in the history of Tesla coming out. Well, number one, we have higher numbers than usual, and Tesla sales were declining, but they declined less than usual. In fact, they were slightly up for the quarter in the United States. We know they're running full bore still in Europe. Certain countries don't like what Elon had to say and therefore were cut back on their sales. But Tesla's been in need of two factories in Europe for a while because you're serving, basically the entire continent of Eastern Europe or Western Europe without England, but you're reaching down into places like Turkey and even into the Middle East, and all that production is coming out of Germany, and you're trying to service half the globe almost with vehicles from there. So I can see why the demand and the 24/7 needs have been coming out of the factory in Germany. So the answer I believe that's going to come up is we're going to see solid numbers. As Mr. Johnson talked about, sales would be pulled forward into the third quarter because we're at the end of the $7,500 tax credit. And then in theory, we end up with lower numbers in the fourth quarter because of that pull forward. I think Elon's going to pull off a surprise, and that surprise is going to be that we're going to be in scale production of the Tesla Semi starting sometime in mid to late October, which will allow Tesla to push the numbers that they will see. And if it could in theory be, 10% or 20% of normal speed of production. But after listening to one of the Tesla managers discuss the fact that they're running 24/7 to get that factory open, I really believe that they're actually going to do a full bore 5,000 to 8,000 units in 1 month. And if that's the case, call it $400,000 times 8,000 units. And it's not only the question of how many units were produced, which is a new revenue stream. As you know, $60K is the average price of a Model Y. And if you multiply that, let's say 7 or 8 times, that's the price of a Semi. So your revenue hit and profit hit, if you still got the same margins, is actually very attractive. So overall, what I'm arguing is start with the semi-production ramping, add the nice numbers that came out for the quarter that could actually continue, add in maybe a little bit of, let's call it hype, from both the robot coming out and being used more across Tesla facilities, and also the fact that we now have potential forward revenue ideas associated with the new Robotaxis. There's a number of small and large things that will add successfully to what Tesla is up to. The only fly in the ointment that I see coming up is the fact that China has gone into a crazy zone where the Chinese government is funding way too many companies all at the same time trying to stay alive. And so they're basically not delivering vehicles at a profit. They're simply delivering them at break even. And then, as they sort of drop the prices in China brutally, they're now seeing a situation where they're shipping those vehicles out to the rest of the world, particularly the third world, let's say Nigeria and countries like that, Russia, and screwing up the car markets in those places where domestic manufacturers can't compete with the low prices that the Chinese are able to deliver because they're getting together with the government and able to stay alive even if they're at break even. So I just think Tesla is going to have a good quarter, not great. And with the start of the semi-production, I just believe that we're going to end up with a very, very solid quarter heading into another couple of solid quarters. And the analysts are now going to have to upgrade the stock based on revenue and profit increases driven by all the issues that I just described. So keep an eye out. I still hold on to my 600-ish price range for the coming up in January of this year. I think it actually could happen sooner. It's all contingent upon will Elon allow the Semi to roar. And for me, the Semi roar will come from what if the Semi factory ran 24/7 and could, instead of reaching the 5,000 to 6,000 vehicles a month, got up into that 10 to 15,000 vehicle zone. And then we have to start playing the what if game, which is, what if we had the best case scenario, which was in Texas, they would just produce enough Cybertrucks for the year in a month like they can do right now, and then the rest of the year have it converted to producing Semi. And if that best case scenario actually occurred and we ran full bore at both factories, the revenue numbers annually for Tesla would actually have the semi-trucks revenue and profit number exceed the revenue and profit number on all the vehicles combined. So will this happen? I would say probably not, because we haven't seen any action to shift the production in the Cybertruck line to the Semi, and some of our viewers are suggesting they may not be possible based on the design of that line. But I would say that if anybody could creatively figure it out, I think it would be Elon. And let's not forget, Tesla is the place where they've actually built cars in a tent adjacent to the factory when they were trying to make big numbers a few years ago. So we look forward to providing more information as we get it. That is our anticipation of where we are, where we're headed, and why. And I'm excited about the company doing well. Next, I'd like to jump back into our health tips. The one reminder of the day that I wanted to present is, yes, don't forget your 25 leg lifts a day. Also, try to maintain the same sleep schedule 7 days a week rather than just during the week. You'll be a lot healthier and happy. I also wanted to note to you that cutting out stuff like orange juice might be a good idea, and eating the orange instead, because you get fiber and it reduces, the sugar hit you'll take in the process. Once again, thanks for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss auf Wiedersehen, Hodafes, Drazi Jenny Homal. In Jamaica, we say enough respect. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and bye for now.